Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Week in Review for March 30th, 2025. Today, we're talking with Arthur Khachatryan, who is a member of the Parliament of Armenia with the highest standing. This is the Armenia Alliance. Welcome back, Mr. Khachatryan. Glad to have you on the show as always.
Thank you, and pleasure is mine.
And Asbed, I should say, welcome back to the show as well to you.
Thank you, Hovik. Okay, so yesterday on March 30th, 2025, Iran rejected President Donald Trump's ultimatum for direct negotiations over its expanding nuclear program. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian cited a deep distrust of U.S. Policies, pointing to past agreements that were not honored by Trump. However, Pezeshkian said that he remains open to indirect negotiations through intermediaries, highlighting the ongoing tensions between the two nations and recent U.S. so-called maximum pressure policies on Iran and military actions against Iran-backed groups in the Middle East. In response, of course, what would you expect? Trump doubled down and renewed his threats. He said that if they don't make a deal, there will be bombing. How might Iran's openness to indirect talks influence the dynamics of the nuclear negotiations, Arthur?
Well, of course, negotiations are always better than war, but negotiations can either succeed or they can fail. So far, the negotiations were indirect through Oman. Now, I think the Iranian president has offered proximity talks like negotiations like we had in Key West back in 1999 or in Dayton, Ohio, between Serbs and Bosniaks in 94, 95. So I think that's what Iran's offering. That's what Iran offering. If the relations go sour, it can be a real problem for Armenia, given its very, very delicate and very difficult situation because of not wise Armenia's foreign policy, because of the war, because of long chain of unilateral concessions to Azerbaijan and to Turkey, because of Turkey's and Iran and Azerbaijan's very aggressive policy, foreign policy, as we saw in well, not only in Armenia, in Artsakh, but also recently in Syria, given the very friendly relations between Azerbaijan and Israel. So if extra headache is created for Iran, this extra headache, the spillover effect of this extra headache, Armenia will feel very quickly. Today we have only one very reliable route that goes through Iran. The route through Georgia is not reliable, especially in this time of the year. And I'm talking about purely climatic conditions and relief conditions. So it can be a problem because if war erupts near our borders, I won't be sure that Azerbaijan will not grab this opportunity and start another offensive against Armenia. Even its continuous bomb is shooting at Armenian villages in Goris, in Khachatryan, and continuous disinformation that Armenia violates the ceasefire regimes that shoots at Azerbaijan, while the common sense says that Armenia has no reason for violating the ceasefire regime and shooting at Azerbaijan. Why should Armenia do that?
Right. And I think the EU mission in Armenia has also negated that. They've said that Armenia has not been shooting. And there's video evidence, I think, that they're shooting towards the villages.
Right, true. Of course, there's video evidence. Sure, there's a footage. There are photographs showing that Azerbaijan fires at Khachatryan. This is Goris, Sunik. The Goris region. It's close to basically this is the shortest distance between Armenia and Artsakh. Anyway, so they keep violating the ceasefire regime. Other than that, Azerbaijan, presses on Armenia to withdraw the European monitors from the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan forced the Red Cross people to leave Baku. So now there's no third party to witness whether there was a shooting against, firing towards Armenia or not. with regards to these European monitors, they said that they haven't seen anything,
Hmm.
but there are just few monitors, and they are not permanently on the border, on the frontier between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So they haven't seen doesn't mean there was no shooting from Azerbaijan against Armenia. Okay, they said we haven't seen Armenia shooting against Azerbaijan, but okay, did it affect Azerbaijan anyhow? No, of course.
Yeah.
No, and no declaration, no statement can affect Azerbaijan, can influence their decisions. So basically, if the international community is honest and serious about taming Azerbaijan, then they shall pass from words to real actions, real
Arthur,
sanctions.
yeah, I'm interested in some of the aspects that you are discussing here, specifically having to do with Europe. Does Europe come in at all in the whole discussion between the US and Iran as far as the nuclear talks go? Because if you recall, about 8 years ago, or was it 10 years ago, when Obama negotiated the JCPOA, it was with the West. Right. But with the
Well,
current
this was
situation, it
Europe.
seems like there's a differentiation between Europe and the US. So I'm wondering if this introduces a differentiation in Iran's policy towards Armenia, where Armenia has recently voted to become a member of the EU, and there's of course the EUMA in Armenia, and Iran might not consider this as an offensive move on the part of Armenia.
Well, Iran was pretty clear that it's not happy about having these European monitors not from Iranian borders
Hmm.
because basically they had doubts or concerns that these Euro monitors were collecting intelligence information also about Iran. So this was a very tricky deal because this basically brought together Russia, Iran, and Azerbaijan to complain about the presence of European monitors in Armenia on the borders with Azerbaijan. But there is a triangle where Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Iran meet each other. So talking about the presence of Europe, I will be very surprised to know that Europe plays very active role in negotiations between the US and Iran. And basically, if we look at the relations between Europe and the US, they are not as smooth as they used to be, especially after the World War II. Uh, so the relations between Europe and the US are not as they used to be, like a few months ago during Obama administration. Sorry, Biden administration, Obama administration. So I will be very surprised to know that. But I think that Europe will be more inclined to have a milder deal with Iran than the United States. If I may remind, during his first term, President Trump's first term, he sent his national security advisor, John Bolton, to Armenia in November 2018, and he basically tried to press Armenia and Azerbaijan, by the way, to shut the border between Armenia and Iran and Azerbaijan and Iran. Uh, Thanks God, Pashinyan was smart enough in 2018 not to do that, and Armenia basically was rescued because Azerbaijan denied to close the border as well. And then when Armenian and Iranian Azerbaijani foreign ministers met in DC in June 2019, again they met before that meeting with Deputy Secretary Ricker and with Bolton, and they again pressed on Armenia to shut the border.
Hmm.
So in a nutshell, to cut it short, the things can go really sour if Iran and United States are unable to find common ground.
Mr. Khachatryan, Iran, of course, as we mentioned multiple times, has been the strongest opponent of Baku's and Ankara's alliance to seize the southern part of Armenia as part of their pan-Turkic ambitions. But instead of strengthening ties with Iran, or at least strengthening it even more than what it currently is, Armenia has been moving closer to EU and the West. And just last week, Armenia's parliament passed a bill expressing intention to join the EU. I believe, I'm not sure if your faction voted no or was boycotted the vote. But in any case, civil contract has absolute majority. So at the same time, as the war rhetoric heats up, Armenia's strategic options seem to be narrowing. I mean, I
Right.
think that many reasonable Armenians would say that we should have some kind of if Iran is so interested in preventing this pan-Turkic corridor, then we should have some kind of a agreement with Iran for a military alliance. And in fact, on March 10, your colleague Armen Rustamian suggested exactly that same idea, that Armenia should consider joining a military and political alliance with Iran, albeit that was before these recent rounds of threat. So both you and Mr. Rustamian are members of the ARF. Is this the official ARF position about a military alliance with Iran? And how realistic is this scenario, especially now with all the new things that we're learning?
Well, let me answer a couple of questions that were give me a couple of answers to the questions you had. First, the law that was passed in the parliament is not a law. If you are acquainted with the text, it just says Armenia proclaims that it's moving towards Europe, about its intention to join European Union. According to the Armenian legislation, any law shall stipulate at least one sort of behavioral action. So there is no action defined in this law. Okay, what shall Armenia do? So the co-rapporteur, the deputy foreign minister, says, okay, doesn't mean that the next day we'll apply for the European Union membership. Okay, so if Armenia is serious about joining the European Union, then there is a procedure of joining the European Union. Okay, they shall apply to the European Council, get this membership status, has the individual accession plan, then has a referendum, and so on. Okay, so this is just a bluff. Okay, Pashinyan, who has failed on his both promises during previous elections, to bring happiness to the people and to bring peace to the people, now tries to find another candy to show the people, the constituency before the elections, and to say, vote for me, you'll get the candy, and the candy is European Union. But it's not a candy, it's just a wrap, okay? Because candy has never been inside the wrap. So, and we don't see any enthusiastic response from the European Union after this piece of paper was approved by the majority. I believe this has just as internal agenda. Plus, I think this was a result of a blackmail by the Republic Party, not the Republican, by the Republic Party, because a few days before this vote, because of second reading, the majority withdrew that draft from the committee hearing, from the committee vote. They postponed that for up to 2 months, and then in 2 weeks they brought it back. So I think this was a pure blackmail this can be a blackmail from one of his satellite parties, Aram Sargsyan. So if they withdraw their support, the governing coalition in Yerevan municipality will collapse. And on the verge of elections in Gyumri and Parakar, this can be just a catastrophe for Nikol Pashinyan. No, about Armenia and Iran, the party was always advocating, was always a propagandist of a closer ties between Armenia and Iran. Economic ties, political ties, joint military exercises. So there's nothing new what Mr. Rustamian says. Okay, so today, when Iran is basically the only country has said that it won't, it won't be happy if the road passes through Armenia without Armenia's control on that. So Iran becomes Armenia's natural ally. No other country has said that,
Well, it's not just a level of happiness or unhappiness they've expressed. They've expressed a red line about Armenia's sovereignty over that territory.
Yeah, the rumors say that
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, when Azerbaijan was threatening to elbow its road through Syunik, Iran moved its forces towards Artsakh, and this basically cooled down Azerbaijan's passion.
Yeah.
So this said, it's natural for Armenia to have strategic alliance with Iran. And it's interesting that all around U.S. administrations, maybe except Mr. Trump's administration. They were understanding the reason, and they they understood that relations between Armenia and Iran are of vital importance for Armenia.
I mean, I should note that even Azerbaijan has had joint military drills with Iran, even though
Oh,
they
sure.
are talking about southern Azerbaijan and claiming Iranian territory. Yeah, but it'd be interesting to see how much Trump is tolerating this, because it seems like naturally, even Trump wouldn't. I don't think even Trump would like to see a pan-Turkic, empire.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Basically, that's very true. Uh, when we talk with high-level U.S. officials, of course, we can feel that, okay, that the U.S. is not happy with having a powerful Turkey out of the U.S. control, because we and the Americans remember that Turkey, for instance, didn't allow the U.S. to use its Incirlik military base. So having untamed Turkey is not in line with the U.S. interests, is not in line with the European interests, because there is a direct threat to Southern Europe. Obviously, it's against the interests of Sunni Arabs, mainly the Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, then the Shia world, Iran, and of course the Russians. Because the Turks and Azerbaijans, of course, the name of the game is not Southern Caucasus. The name of the game is Central Asia, and of course Middle East. But I'm, talking about this part of the world. This is Caucasus and Central Asia, and this basically will allow, and we'll have the land connection between Turkish states from Bosphorus till Western China. Well, of course, there's a small portion that will go through or by sea, Caspian Sea, but it's neutral waters and it's basically uncontrolled route.
Right.
And of course, Iran would like to control that route itself, because they understand that the leverage the Turks and Azeris have over Armenia are much, much higher than the leverage they have or can even think about having on Iran.
Frankly, if my opinion counts,
Of course,
I
it
think
does.
that let's send all the Turks and Azeris to Iran. I'm more than happy that way. They can collect all the fees they want. I'll even pay a little bit more out of my pocket. But let's come to Yerevan, or not Yerevan. Let's come to Gyumri, the second largest city in Armenia, and the elections that happened there. So yesterday, on Sunday, March 30th, was election day in actually two Armenian municipalities, Gyumri and Parakar, a small town in Armavir, which is right next to Yerevan. So local elections don't usually grab much attention, not to mention national headlines, but this time it seems to have been different. All the media was focused on these two elections. I think mainly because both Nikol Pashinyan and various opposition groups fought very hard for votes there. So in Parakar, the news there is that there was a decisive defeat for civil contract, with the opposition Unity Alliance, led by Volodya Grigoryan, winning 56% of the vote. Mr. Grigoryan, I believe, is from the Aprelu Yerkir, or a country to live party. In Gyumri,
Let's hope
civil
he doesn't get
contract.
arrested, Hovik.
Well, yes.
Well,
You're jumping
yeah,
the
given the
questions.
statements, well, given the statement of the Ministry of Interior and Nikol Pashinyan's today's statement, well, mainly, of course, the target is Gyumri, but I won't be surprised. I won't be
Yeah,
surprised at
Yeah.
all.
yeah. There's history there.
So going to Gyumri, civil contract did manage to get 36% of the vote. They are the largest vote getter as a result, but they failed to secure a majority. So that means a coalition government would have to run Gyumri. And it just so happens that the four other parties or alliances that cleared the threshold are all seem to be opposition, or at least were staunch opposition to civil contract. My question, I guess, is you were there in the scene in Gyumri. Can you tell us in what role were you there, and you describe the situation politically, and how the elections went in your view?
Well, I think half of Yerevan was in Gyumri yesterday. We're in our office. I went and lit the candle, but basically, we are there to prevent any sort of police brutality or intimidation to the voting process because the all civil contract party was there. Their like leadership of the party was there. Lots of police was there. Day before, relatives of one of the major opposition group were arrested. Martin Grigorian. The government was pretty clear that they also have an eye against Vartan Ugasian, who finished the second. The day before at the parliament, the civil contact MPs were talking about intimidation efforts by the opposition and trying to buy votes. They issued statements, so the atmosphere was very tense. But thanks God, the voting process was very quiet. Was very quiet, though there was a power shortage. Interestingly, I lived in Gyumri for 1 year. I lived in Gyumri. I was governor of that region. There was no single day when we had a power shortage. When the vote count started, the light just went off. So, yeah, you're right. For opposition parties, they passed the threshold. They have more votes than civil contract itself. So, despite this administrative pressure, despite like the asking people to go to vote, during given that the people who participate in their rally were basically all, a majority were employees of municipality enterprises like schools, healthcare institutions. They got like 36% only.
I mean, we were talking before the show, and Asbed was
It
surprised
was
that
not a fair game. It was not fair elections because all opposition parties, all opposition candidates were complaining from this immense pressure they are feeling personally.
That probably explains a lot because, like Hovik was saying, we were talking right before you jumped on the show, Arthur. I was saying that I was quite surprised to see 34%, I think 34.1%
36.
for
36.
36% for Sarik Minasyan at a time when really I kind of expected a little under 20, 17 to 20%, given what I've read from everything in the Gyumri region. So how is it that they got such a large single
Well,
party
again,
showing?
I don't think it was a fair process. I cannot say that I've seen that someone buying a vote or forcing someone to go into vote, but
Hmm.
all the campaign shows that the government, Nikol Pashinyan, has, applied all the pressure to get to squeeze votes for Sarik.
Yeah, admin resources.
Yeah, all the resources, administrative resources, they were just police everywhere, not in the polling stations, but in the town. So you can feel the atmosphere was exercised. But I think 2 3 days before the elections, before the voting day, they understood that the business will go south there because they had a final rally there, and Pashinyan didn't show up. But the logic says that he should have grabbed this opportunity to say the revolution started from Gyumri 7 years, exactly 7 years ago. So it's a chance to prove that we are still loyal to revolutionary values and ideas, blah 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 blah. But he didn't show up, so I think he understood that Sarik has no chances to win, and he didn't want to get personal blame for or personal responsibility for failing the elections. As of this point in time, it's about 10:30 p.m. in Armenia. It's still not clear how these four winners, what deal these four winners will cut. Vardan Ugasian, the challenger, said that if anybody from opposition who gets the largest amount of votes, I will support him. I will not ask for any position. The two other candidates again said that the winner is Ugasian, or implicitly or explicitly. Martin Grigorian hasn't said anything yet. All he said is that Gyumri will not have a civil contract mayor. What does this mean? It's subject to subjective judgment.
So sorry, just for our listeners, Martin Grigoryan is from the Our City Alliance, and they were third with 15% of the vote, and Vartan Ghukasyan, former mayor of Gyumri, not the Vartan Ghukasyan that many might realize, is the infamous Vartan Ghukasyan, the one who cusses. It's not that
Dog.
one. Yeah,
It's not
it's
done.
not dog. It's the normal Vartan Ghukasyan, but former mayor of Gyumri again.
Hovik, can I interrupt for just a second? That brings up an important point because Vartan Ghukasyan in Yerevan played a little bit of a fifth column in the opposition and eventually managed to get, that's right, in Yerevan 2 years ago, September 2023. So is there such a possibility in Gyumri for any one of these runner-up candidates? We're talking about Ghukasyan, Grigoryan, Mkhitaryan, Simonian, to act as a spoiler and suddenly give civil contract enough seats to take the chairmanship?
That's not the only mechanism. For instance, we've seen in Vanadzor the government simply arresting people, and Martin Grigoryan's family members were arrested. So, how much just pressure can be applied, and in what ways? So, in what ways can the coalition form, and what are the risks for a coalition forming? How certain are you that?
Jens, both of you are right. So this Vox Populi party associated with Vardan Ghukasyan, who's in the States. I don't know, he's still in Nevada or in jail in Nevada, or I don't know where is he now. He campaigned as an opposition party, but his people, if not his, if his people didn't show up, then Tigran Avinya wouldn't be elected. There wouldn't be any quorum, but they showed up. Some of them voted for Tigran Avinya, so basically, they were the kingmaker, and they made Tigran Avinya the king, the mayor of Yerevan. Is there such a chance in Gyumri? I don't want to eliminate anything. I don't want to eliminate anything, any intrigue, any conspiracy. Neither trying to blackmail, to threaten, to buy someone, nor direct arrests. And this was not only in Vanadzor, the same was in Bert, Shamshadin. Basically in all municipalities where civil contract had failed, there are criminal cases against the winning political forces, against the mayors. Again, like in Goris, to start with Khachatryan, as I said, Vardenis is now there are sort of accusations against the mayor. The elected mayor of Bert was arrested, and Mamikon Aslanyan, the elected mayor of Vanadzor, spent in jail for about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So basically, everyone is very anxious now, waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah. So the Hayakve initiative, I think, did some preliminary estimation of the number of seats that each of the parties would get, and I just want to read that for our listeners. So Sadiq Minasyan's party, Civil Contract, would get 14 seats, while the remaining opposition combined would have 19 seats. So if he flips 3 people, then he can steal these elections again.
He did that in Tallinn, for instance.
As you say, nothing should be excluded, and we're all
nothing should be excluded. So everyone, again, as I said, everyone is very anxious and impatient to see what's going to happen in Gyumri.
Okay, well, let's see how the week progresses. We have a couple more topics, so let's hit them real fast. Last week, thousands of refugees from Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, staged a large protest in Yerevan, demanding that the Armenian government take steps to ensure their safe return to their homeland. Protest leaders criticized Pashinyan's administration for failing to address their grievances and announced a week-long sit-in at Liberty Square. And the refugees demanded that the government reinstate housing allowances and take political and diplomatic steps to guarantee their return to Nagorno-Karabakh. However, the government has not yet responded, at least to my knowledge, to the protesters' demands at this point. This is Monday evening in Yerevan, leaving the situation completely unresolved. So how has the Armenian government responded to the ongoing protests in general as an attitude, if not in words?
Well, on the 29th of March, the Artsakh, they called for a rally. I think at least 25,000 people were participated in the rally. Of course, majority were from Artsakh, but it were not only Artsakhs. Like I've seen many uh, uh, stances, many Armenians from Armenia on the square. Yeah, basically, the Artsakhs have two sort of demands. The first is socio-economic, because the government programs to address the needs of Artsakh refugees had very, very low level of reception by potential beneficiaries. The housing program is a complete fiasco, complete fiasco. Out of 35,000 potential beneficiary families, just few dozen have used these government like housing certificates, because the program design is really horrible, really horrible. Amount of money they give is not enough to buy a house. I'm not talking about Yerevan, okay? Anyway, so many of them have to contribute their own funds. Can go to the banks. Without having proper jobs, the bank wouldn't give them mortgage. They don't have their own savings because these people were under complete siege for 9 months, and the prices of first necessity goods just skyrocketed, like about $10 for a kilo of cucumber, when in Yerevan it was like 50 cents only. Okay, just to imagine, all their savings were squeezed. They escaped narrowly without having like the first necessity only. So cutting this 10 plus 40,000 drams, which is for rent, and saying that, okay, we have amended the housing program, instead of renting an apartment, just buy an apartment or a house. It just cannot, cannot resist any criticism, okay? Sustain any criticism, because it's just crazy. People who rent house are completely different from people who buy a house anywhere in Armenia and in the States, okay? They don't have proper jobs. If you cut this and say, okay, now in Armavir, like initially I was paying 3 million dram per person to buy a house. Now I'm paying 4 million drams. It's not enough. In Armavir and in Yerevan, a family of 3 or 4 cannot buy a house for 12 or 60 million drams. Okay, so if they buy, there's no jobs. So one demand, what sort of demand is socio-economic demands. The second is more of the political, to be more active in advocating the rights of the people of Artsakh for collective and safe return to their homes, and advocating for their political rights. But the government, Pashinyan, during his Q&A session at the National Assembly the previous week, says Armenia shall not continue the Artsakh movement, while few of us from opposition try to understand what does it mean, because in 2022, he basically recognized Azerbaijan's sovereignty over Nagorno-Karabakh, over Artsakh. So he basically stopped the Artsakh movement. He didn't answer anything. They're afraid of using the word Artsakh. They're afraid of, any symbols of Artsakh. Even, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, the Bundespresident of Deutschland, Germany, visited Armenia today. On his personal social media, he had the Artsakh flag. So even the German president was more pro-Artsakh than Armenian authorities. But to be honest, the political demands were very mild, and I understand these people.
Beyond the Armenian government stance, Arthur, what do you think are the realistic prospects of the right of return of Gharapatzis back to their homes?
Well, look,
Is this really possible?
It is possible, I think. Like the last bill that was passed by both chambers of the Swiss Parliament, then the calls from international community to ensure the safe return of the people to their houses, the court verdicts. I think if Armenia's government uses that, if Armenia's government is serious and determined, they can return this issue back to international arena. And you cannot just say no, you are not allowed to return to your house. Okay, so it shall be like gradual thing. Okay, I recognize the right of the people to return, and then these people return, then proper security guarantee shall be provided. Because we understand that if these people become ordinary citizens of Azerbaijan without third party protection, then it can be another genocide, slaughter, or another exodus, another ethnic cleansing. But the first step shall be just the ensuring that their right is recognized, and then just to continue that. Of course, it's a long process, but the people of Artsakh have the right to decide on their own political destiny. But of course, no resolution can force Azerbaijan to recognize the right of collective return. So, besides resolutions, there will be the practical steps, practical sanctions against Azerbaijan, sanctions against the Aliyev regime, against not only Azerbaijan enterprises, but against direct sanctions against the assets of Aliyev family and Pashayev family. Pashayev is his wife, Mehriban Pashayev.
I've talked to many Artsakhis in person, and I personally believe that without Artsakh, Armenia is basically soulless. It's a body without a soul,
and deeply vulnerable politically.
Absolutely, I agree with both of you.
But when I talk to many Artsakhis, I think even with some kind of a semi-autonomous status, they don't see how they can safely return. But beyond that, what legal and political challenges could arise from reinstating these refugee benefits? Why is the Armenian government so intent on removing these benefits? And could it backfire as well on the Armenian government? Yeah.
25% of Artsakh refugees have left the country. 25%. I'm not sure that the government is willing to keep the Artsakhs in Armenia, because they understand that Artsakhs blame personally Pashinyan for loss of Artsakh. And that's why we see cutting on the social benefits. We see cultivating hate speech against Artsakhs. And I won't be surprised if tomorrow morning I wake up and see in the press that this night the KGB troops have stormed into the Artsakh representation in Armenia and just locked the door.
Arthur, will they be allowed to vote in 2025 or 26?
If they don't assume Armenian citizenship, then no. They are allowed to vote in local elections, but not national elections. So many people, there's a very lack of information. There's a lot of disinformation. So these people are very reluctant to accept Armenian citizenship.
Understandably. Yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't be protesting about their right of return to their homeland.
Absolutely.
And in fact, their passports with the 070 code are the last remaining proof that they were Artsakhs, and the Armenian government is forcing them to change that. So many are reluctant to do that, unfortunately. And it seems like it's a double-edged sword, because that means that if they want to vote, they have to renounce their passport and get a new one.
True. Well, like at the National Assembly, we initiated an investigative ad hoc commission to investigate the efficiency and effectiveness of the government programs. The civil contract party just voted it down. So they didn't even allow to form this committee. But we've done lots of research. We've asked the UNDP to commission a team of experts to commission a study, and we are going to release our findings very soon.
Okay, and last topic today, very quickly. So this alleged agreement on a so-called peace deal seems to be basically hot air, a pure public relations stunt. We've talked about it many times, but nevertheless, dozens of countries are playing along with this and congratulating both countries for the dawn of an era of peace and heaven and prosperity and whatever. But Azerbaijan is actually continuing to ratchet up the rhetoric and saying that Armenia is firing at its positions. In fact, there were even pictures, as you said, of Azerbaijan shooting at Armenian homes in border regions. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan says until Armenia meets some of the preconditions, no peace deal will be signed. Those list of preconditions, I think, is not deterministic.
It's very flexible and expandable.
Yeah, just let us know what your position is on this. I can understand why Pashinyan and Aliyev might be pretending and playing along with peace. I can't understand the international community taking part in this charade. But more importantly, all these preconditions, where does it end, Mr. Khachatryan? And what is your thought about all of these, the so-called peace process?
Well, your question is multifaceted. First of all, Azerbaijan pressed on Armenia, and Armenia accepted the last two conditions, the last two additions of last 2 points in this piece of paper called Peace Treaty or Treaty on Peace and Establishment of Relations. I don't even remember what's the proper name of that document.
Which we can't even see for like they won't even disclose what it looks
yes, like. Because it's kept in high secrecy. I don't know, maybe you know or not, maybe I've told that or not. We had applied to get acquainted to this document because we are entitled by the constitution and by legislation, by law, to know what's in there. After the hysteria in Baku, Pashinyan himself directly prohibited the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to show this document to us. So it's in a high secrecy. No one knows what was the agreement between Pashinyan and Aliyev. Okay. So anyway, but we know that Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Azerbaijan issued a statement saying that Armenia agreed on the last 2 points to our position. Armenia acknowledged that a few hours after the Azeri statement. Except these, there are several preconditions. So they agreed on the text, but Azerbaijan says there are few preconditions that Armenia has to respect before we sign the document. This is, I assume, pulling back the claims against each other in international courts. I think I'm sure this is the corridor issue. I'm sure this is just allowing Western Azeris to come to Armenia. I'm sure this is also handing to Azerbaijan war criminals, so basically the ones who fought during the Karabakh wars. So I won't be surprised if my name is on this list. I won't be surprised that the names of the 3 presidents, ministers of defense is there. Okay, so even though the text has been agreed on, but Azerbaijan will not sign it. It says it will not sign it until the constitution is changed and the other demands have been met. This is one part of the question. The second, imagine you open the newspaper or you go to a news site, and you read that Uganda and Rwanda have settled the conflict between them, 40-year-old conflict on border issues. Will you dig deep to see whether this deal is fair, whether it respects the legitimate rights of Uganda and Uganda? No. They announced that the conflict is over, and you will salute that, won't you? But literally about 2 weeks ago, when first it appeared in the press that Azerbaijan and Armenia had agreed on the text, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Armenia issued a statement welcoming the agreement between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan on border issue. Did anyone bother to read what is this conflict about? No, the two countries of the conflict, 2 parties of the conflict, settled the deal. Why shall any country say, no, hold on. What's the issue of Artsakh? No, of course. Armenia and Azerbaijan cut a deal. Hallelujah. That's it.
Yeah, go ahead and sign.
Go ahead and sign. We are sick and tired of, Azerbaijan is complaining of Armenia is complaining of Azeris. Thanks God they've come to an agreement. And no one will care what's in there. That's it. That's the story. Everyone knows that there was a peace treaty signed in Versailles after the World War One. What was there? That's it. That's it.
Well, let's wrap it up for today. Let me ask each of you, as usual, if you have some thoughts from the past week, 2 weeks that's on your mind and you would like to share. Hovik, would you like to go first?
Sure. I mean, slightly, I guess, not related to Armenia, but maybe a little bit related. I was reading the headlines the last 2 days about 15 Palestinian paramedics being executed one by one in Gaza, and the brutality against the Palestinians there. No matter what your stance, I mean, it's just the caliber of human rights violations that goes with complete impunity, and in fact, cheering by Western leaders is unimaginable. And I thought to myself about the time when I visited Israel in 2005. And at that time, I was a little bit more naive about what I could and couldn't do. So I wanted to go to visit the site where Rachel Corrie was, bulldozed over by the Israeli forces, and realized that, it's in Gaza and not everyone can go to Gaza. So I visited the West
Ramallah.
Bank instead, yeah, Ramallah. But that was just so I looked it up, and that was Rachel Corrie was killed 22 years ago in March, and yeah, I mean, little did I know in 2003 what the Palestinian people were going through, and I just want to reiterate my condemnation of the genocide in Gaza. That's the only thing I can think about nowadays. Unfortunately, as bad as the situation in Armenia is, I mean, watching this
Yeah,
butchery
absolutely.
happening
Absolutely.
live is just like insurmountable to me.
As Armenians, we feel their pain on our skin.
Yeah,
Arthur?
what's happening there is really horrendous. But I think about 50,000 people were killed in Gaza. The country is completely demolished. Now they want to have complete ethnic cleansing and to push the people out of their homelands. And this is that's just demonstration of double standards.
And that's
Even
that's
Joseph,
almost like official statement on the part of the US administration.
yeah, it's like peace through force.
Arthur, anything on your mind you would like to share?
No, not really, because I think I've shared all what's in my mind. What I can say is that the peace is has never been as far as it is now. Azerbaijan, I've said that. I want to repeat once more. Okay, the most peaceful place in the world is the cemetery. Everyone rests in peace there. So this is kind of peace Azerbaijan has prepared is going, is dreams about. Okay, that's his dream. And the Armenian government, basically speculates, saying that we are, we have to choose between war and peace. They are pushing for peace, and the opposition pushes for war. No, what we say is that the policy of Armenian government doesn't bring us close to peace. It takes us away from peace, because the peace that's not based on justice, fairness, is just a truce. It's just a truce. Okay, for the peace to be sustainable, it shall respect the legitimate, vital interest of both parties, of all parties of the conflict. Unfortunately, we don't see that. And this week, I published, the first volume of my book on Artsakh negotiations is out. This is 1988 to 2001. The second volume is ready, just waiting for funds to be available for to have it printed. Is the chronology, hundreds of documents, and very detailed process of negotiation process, and all major documents discussed till 27th of September, when the war erupted. So I think that very soon I'll have the presentation of the book to the public.
Do you expect this in 2025?
It's ready. The volume one is ready.
I
That's
mean, the presentation and everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
In the
Okay.
next month, maybe.
Excellent.
I
Excellent.
think tomorrow is next month already.
Well, congratulations. Yes, but tomorrow is April 1st, April Fool's Day. Congratulations. I repeat that too. Okay, very
Okay.
good.
Okay, gentlemen.
Thank you for your thoughts, and let's close on that note. Thank you.
Take
Take
care. Have a
care.
nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, well, that was our weekend review show. We've recorded this on March 31st, 2025. We've been talking with Mr. Artur Khachatryan, who is an MP from the Hayastan Dashink in the Armenian parliament. He's also a member of the ARF, the Armenian Revolutionary Federation, Dashnaktsutyun. In the past, he has held government posts such as Deputy Minister of Territorial Administration and Development, Governor of Shirak, he mentioned that himself, and Minister of Agriculture. For more information on all the participants in this episode, check out our show notes at podcast.groong.org/episode number. I'm Asbed Bedrossian in Los Angeles.
And in Yerevan, this is Hovik Manucharyan. And a big favor to ask you, please find us on social media, wherever you are, and subscribe, like, and share our content. Give us a comment under this video on YouTube. It really helps us, and it also gives us feedback on how we're doing. Thank you very
That's
much.
right. Bye-bye.